Hola, bienvenidos a una nueva edición de los especiales Télam Rock. Esta semana entrevistamos a Glen Matlock, ex bajista y principal compositor de los Sex Pistols, mítica banda británica que en los 70 provocó la explosión del punk a nivel mundial.
I think everybody from the punk thing in England who did anything of any consequence aren't really punks now. They're punk in their head, but not the way they look or the music that they play, and they're a bit more forward looking than just going back to the past. And they're proud of what they did, but they want to kind of move on, and I'm not really that different. But we all believe in the same principles, that punk was a voice of truth, a voice of action against people trying to tell you what you can't do. I like jazz music, I like soul music, and I like punk music, and I like rock and roll. So somewhere in between. So you see, the thing is with the Sex Pistols, when we started out, there was no punk to listen to. And with the Sex Pistols, I liked bands like the Faces and the Kinks. Paul liked ska. You didn't really have reggae then. Steve Jones liked Johnny Thunders and the Stooges, and John liked hippie bands like Van de Graaff Generator and Hawkwind. And that became punk. I've always been interested as being like a songwriter, you know, like Ray Davies or somebody like that. That's what I always aspired to. And I can appreciate a good song, and it doesn't really matter what idiom it is. You know, it could be punk, it could be rock and roll, it could be soul music, it could be a big ballad. I think one of the whole things with the Pistols, if you've got to measure it against the music that was around before, you know, and horrible bands like Yes and Genesis and Barclay James Hart, it all complicated, talking about not hippies, like fairies and goblins, and it was nonsense. And we tried to make it really simple, like when rock and roll first started, but with a good, strong message. And I think that's what people pick up on. And it was played with a lot of heart and intensity. The whole reason I went to art school was to get in a band. I'd read that, as you say, John Lennon and Keith Richards and Ray Davies and Pete Townsend, they all went to art school, so I thought, oh, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I like music. And going to art school in England, it's not really about painting, it's about trying to work out what's going on in your head. And it gives you a bit of space to kind of think things through. Everything we'd done in the Sex Pistols had been a bit amateur. You know, we didn't have proper roadies, we didn't have leads that worked, and then the same with the rich kids. And when I got invited to play with Iggy Pop, he'd been touring for years. And although he was a crazy guy, he was very professional. Definitely myself, Steve and Paul wanted to be musicians. And I think John as well to a certain extent. But because of what happened, you know, and they're doing that famous TV show where people swore, it became something different entirely, and the music got lost. And in '96, when we got to go and play big stadiums, and it was a bit more about the music, what we originally wanted. So it was kind of like having the last laugh. Everybody wants to hear the old stuff all the time, so if you could write the best song in the world, you think, but they compare it against what they know, and it's never gonna, it's a double-edged sword, you say. But that's fine, that's the way it is. I used to get annoyed about that, but I know that's the way it is, so there's big stars there, and there's people who you never hear of, and I'm somewhere in the middle, and it goes up and down. Just somebody who tried hard, who had some success, but still keeps doing it because he's a bit of an idiot.
Actualmente, Glen Matlock recorre el mundo realizando shows en los que interpreta temas de las diferentes etapas de su carrera. Nos vemos en la próxima edición de los especiales Télam Rock. Chau.